Look at us. It's like we're having coffee together. Or what are we're gonna have martinis? Is that according to Emily, we're having martinis after this. But we're here to talk about loving God, loving others. Our second collaborative book for Blessed is She and HarperCollins. I'm Nella O'Leary. I'm here with some of my very favorite people in the entire world to chat with you guys to share a little bit of our hearts and our process for this book and how it went for us and what to expect for folks who are interested in knowing, like, is this a book? Should I just get another book because it's pretty? What's inside this book? And the answer is yes, you should get this book. It is beautiful. But there's also just some incredible, heartfelt, authentic woman examination of our lives going on. So I'm here, like I said, with my fellow writers for this project. We are really excited. HarperCollins approached us the summer of the pandemic. So we're going back to 2020, guys. I mean, try not to be triggered. We're going all the way back 2 years ago to 2020. And one of their beautiful, incredible editors reached out and said, "Yeah, I love what you guys are doing. Would you be interested in doing some book collaborations?" And Jenna, Beth, and I put our heads together and thought, yeah, this would be really interesting. It'd be really fun. We get to reach a new audience and also do what we do best, which is telling incredible, authentic stories from real women's lives from all walks of life. Because Blessed She is about prayer and community, and we're about sharing the real stuff. It's not fluffy. It's pretty real. It's real around here. So the first book is called Made New: 52 Devotions for Catholic Women. That one is also at blessedshe.net/shop if you're looking for that one. That one goes through different parts of identity. But this book, Loving God, Loving Others, 52 Devotions to Create Connections That Last. This book is about our relationships in life and every rung of relationship you can imagine. So starting with our relationship with God, our relationship with ourselves, with our family of origin, with our family and loved ones now, with our friends, with our work, just looking through all these segments and parts of our lives and examining the hard parts and the good parts, the challenging parts and the rewarding parts. So you're going to read in here some really beautiful and incredible stories, but I want you to meet the women, the hearts behind this book, behind Loving God, Loving Others. So who should I popcorn to first? We're talking about popcorn a lot, but we've been chatting about this before the live stream began. So I'm going to Emily Simpson Chapman, the woman with the popcorn on the mind. Emily, tell us about you.
Oh, hi, Nell. I am a writer. I mean, professionally, not just. I write lots of things besides Blessed is She. I've been writing professionally for 20 years. I should be at the season of life where I'm sending kids off to college, but instead I have a 4-year-old, 2-year-old, and 18-month-old because God had me do life a little backwards. We live in Pittsburgh, which is where my husband grew up. I am originally from Rock Island, Illinois, though same diocese as Bonnie. We're both from my home diocese is Peoria, but I have been in Steubenville or Pittsburgh now for a very, very long time. I think 20 years now. I've been out in the Appalachia, northern Appalachia. So
Emily, that's so great. Would you have I mean, you wrote so many stories. You wrote on work. You were the last section, the last part that examined our relationship with work and calling a vocation. So maybe if you can give a sneak preview, if there's a story that you loved and any advice you have for our ladies.
Eh, sure. So it's interesting because you guys asked me to talk about work, and I've been working the longest since I'm the oldest of everybody here. So you get a very full picture of my 20, I don't know, it's like covers 25 years of my work history. From when I was a young 20 something, 22-year-old on Capitol Hill, right through to when I was discerning a sort of a tinkering, a shift in my career after the birth of our youngest daughter, which because I straddled the book, writing the book between before and after she was born. So I was trying to get as many things in before she was born. We adopted her and we had to race across the country to California to get her. And that was a very dramatic month in California in the NICU there. And then I came back and finished it. So, but really the whole point was not to give you my work history, but to show you the discernment that takes place as you move through different seasons in life, through different challenges that come up, because work isn't just a job. Work is one of the ways God sanctifies us. It's one of the ways He shows us areas that we need to grow. It's one of the areas He calls us to serve. And it's not a once and done thing. It's an ongoing point of discernment as we figure out how we use our gifts in different seasons at different in the midst of different challenges and how God is always speaking to us through it and drawing us to him. And so it was a real privilege to be able to kind of write that long reflection and see the work that God has been doing in me through my work and hopefully be able to draw out some helpful lessons for others from that.
Just so many lessons. I mean, I enjoyed reading it, and I know our readers will too. That you do reflect on the ups and the downs, which are many and multitude when you have a good span of many different jobs you worked too. All right, Emily, you get to give us advice, and then you get to pick the next victim to chat about her chapters.
Wait a minute. So advice? You want advice?
Yeah, we want your advice. Come on, we want advice.
I was like, what advice? How to make a martini? I can talk to you about that. I could go show you in the kitchen right now.
Popcorn,
It's been a
popcorn,
long day. It's been such a long day. It's been such a long week. Okay.
your champ.
More specifically, what kind of work advice?
For people who are examining their relationship with work and are trying to, is there a starting point for discernment in what our Lord is calling you to? Just even
Mhm.
like fundamental first place to begin to discern work.
I think the first place to begin is with your desires. The Lord speaks to us through our desires. He doesn't work against our desires. And so looking at where your heart is and what it feels called to do, then measuring those desires up against reality. Like, do you have the ability to do what you want to do? Is there a certain path of education or formation you need to pursue and able to follow those desires? And then doors. God is not the game show host up in the sky who's like, "Ooh, I've got the perfect life for her behind door number 3. But if she doesn't pick door number 3, oh, misery for her." Like, God does not work that way. He makes very clear at times what ways he wants us to walk and opens doors. But no matter what door we go through, he's always there and he's always working through that and then opening another door because his whole goal is to get us to him. And so when you just take that perspective of I'm following my desires and my giftedness and walking through open doors and, recognizing some doors are going to be closed and knowing the whole while God is always in that and he's always using it. And, it's God never walks away and says, sorry, you're going home with, you know, a lifetime supply of laundry soap. Like the goal is always to get you to him and he's going to work through everything to do that. And then I get to pick the next person to go. All right. How about Sarah, since she is doing in some ways what I was doing 25 years ago?
Hello. That's a lot of pressure. Um, my name is Sarah, and I'm Emily, but not so cool 25 years ago. I'm originally from Arizona, and I came out to DC about 6 years ago for school and then never left. So I finished my master's this year, and I suppose, lodged in that, I don't know, young, cringy DC professional stage of life. Um, I work at the Department of Justice, and work is a big part of my world. So um, it's a real treat to hear your reflections, Emily. Yeah, that's me. I live here. I'm at my house in the same people I lived with in college. So my community, my friends here are really special to me, and that's why writing on friendship was very sacred, even though it wasn't initially comfortable at first. And I also have a cat, which, if anyone follows me on social media, is like the other. I have my friends, and then I have my job, and then I have my cat. So you've pretty much learned everything about me there is to learn. Um, so yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I'm, um, 23, and I I don't know what my next 25 years are, but it's been pretty, I think, I don't know, pretty wild so far.
Sarah, I love your chapter on friendship so much because I think female friendships are so hard. They're so hard from the time we're little girls till the time we're octogenarians. Like they're just really hard. And I appreciated you were honest about that hardship, but also had some beautiful moments of just like a phoenix rising, just as resurrections. Is there a particular story that you love to tell or that was maybe even hard, but one that really hit you that you wrote?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I think my favorite one is probably the one that was the hardest to write. Um, I think writing in general was really difficult because my experiences of friendship have been that they're not typically long lasting. And the one that was the most challenging to write is actually about a friend who has stuck with me over the past several years. She's actually one of my roommates, and it was on this story about forgiveness, and something that's been a huge part of my healing journey with the Lord over the last several years has been, as a person I would identify as, I think, more sensitive than others, and something that's been challenging for me is having to bring moments where I feel hurt or resentful to other people. Having to vocalize that is really, really hard for me. And it's something that I haven't done or haven't really been in good practice of just because of my own wounds that friendships aren't lasting. It just feels like something that's not really worth it. And so, this one story where I got to share just a small moment where I brought a hurtful comment that my friend made to her, and we just had this actual vocal exchange that was really small and not dramatic and didn't derail our friendship, but was just this really tender moment where I realized that our friendship would endure, and not only endure, but actually have sort of a redemptive experience, was very special to me. In fact, when I got the book in the mail, I immediately showed her. She knew I had written this story, but I immediately showed it to her and told her how meaningful it was to have a story in here about a woman who was, so present in my life still, and who taught me that forgiveness should play such a primary role in my friendships, and that I'm allowed to express when things are hurtful, and be forgiven by others as well. She's also expressed times that I have crossed a boundary with her or made her uncomfortable or made her angry, and so she's taught me this really special dynamic that, of course, Jesus teaches us in the gospel is key to gospel living. So I think that one was really hard for me. And it was hard to get in the mail. Like, I almost cringed when I read it because it taps into something raw, but um, it's a significant one for me. Yeah, that one.
Sarah, when women are going through their lives and trying to, reading our stories, not just for the purpose of consumption or voyeurism, but really to think, how is my own story in this too? Do you have any thoughts for women who are approaching or wanting to have more openness to be able to share? I was offended, or I offended you. Like, to be able to have this interchange and interplay for forgiveness. Any advice for those who are like, cringy, so many cringy moments?
Yeah, it's really hard. And every time I still do it, I have to pray in the moment, like before I even open my mouth, for courage from the Lord. Um, this is sort of bizarre, and I don't remember who first shared this with me, but something I do every time I have to have an uncomfortable conversation with a person is I actually pray to that person's guardian angel that they would protect the conversation I'm about to have with that person. And for whatever reason, it kind of brings, I mean, for whatever reason, we know why, but it brings a lot of consolation to me that the Lord, I think, like Emily was really getting at, when we have a desire for reconciliation, for connection, for intimacy, for this community, like, that's a desire the Lord wants to respond to. When we call on that, like right before we engage, that is something the Lord wants to honor. And I think when you vocalize that in prayer right before you speak it, it just does something powerful. So I found I actually have to pray right before I do it. And yeah, I don't know. I guess that's sort of perhaps an elementary tip, but for me, I've found that it's not really something I can do on my own, because if I was to rely on my own human history, I would just look back on, again, friendships that have failed or feelings of disappointment, and that wouldn't be something that um, moves me into an honest conversation. I really do need grace.
Oh my goodness, don't we all? So much grace, so much need for grace. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, who are we picking on next?
Oh, I forgot that I have to do this. How about Megan?
Hi there. I am Megan Helmstead. I am living in the Denver metro area for about the past 10 years, which is crazy because I never thought that I'd be out here. And now I love it. I grew up on the East Coast, and I'm a hockey mom. I am a veteran. I am actually end of this month, wrapping up a 15-year career in the Army. So big changes on the horizon, and just really excited for the next stage. So I wrote about relationship with self, and it was really powerful for me to dig into a lot of those parts of my story, because on those rungs of relationship that we look at, God is first. He's always first. He has to be. But relationship with ourself is the next priority. And so often we just put that at the bottom of the pile and just relegate that to the background. And it's foundational for every other relationship in our life. So it was very powerful to be able to share about those.
I mean, Megan, you bring so much to bear to these stories, and you're so honest about different struggles. Was there one particular story that you loved sharing that really brought you joy to write out?
Well, I think, like Sarah, one that was very meaningful for me was one that actually kind of brought up a lot of difficulty, but I was able to really see and then even enter even more deeply into, while writing it, the healing of it. And that was the incompatibility of different dreams and kind of the death of a dream that resulted from that. And I wrote about when I was in the military and also became a mother, how I wanted both. I wanted to be a leader, I wanted to be a mom. And I felt like an epic failure at both, because I just didn't have the capacity to do both well when I was working full days on active duty and a brand new mom to a newborn. And it was really beautiful to see how, when that dream and that desire that I had, it died in a certain way, God was able to bring me even more fully into devoting time to my motherhood. And then he kind of gave me this third option that I didn't even know existed, which was the Army Reserves. And so that was one weekend a month. And I was able to do that part-time and also be a mother full-time. And it was such a gift to be able to realize that, these dreams that we want and that we desire. And I've really come across the fact that so many women experience this as well. Women that I talk with, women that I walk with, that these dashed dreams, these disappointments, they can really create a wall and almost kind of this subconscious belief that we can't trust God, or that he's just going to hold out good things, dangle the carrot, and then take them away. And we're just going to be left with disappointment, so we can't even hope. And to be able to really look at the trajectory of where God brought me and how I had kind of opened my heart to not only share this disappointment with him, but allow him to help me grieve it, really set me up for him to fulfill my dreams in an even more full and fruitful and rich way. And so it was a beautiful healing process, and also just something I'm so thankful to be able to share with women, because for all of us as humans, dreaming is hard. It's hard when we grow up and everything that we thought was, going to be wonderful when we were starry-eyed youngsters turns into maybe disappointment, bitterness, resentment, or even it just looks different than we thought it would. Maybe we've always dreamed of being a mom, but then we get to it and it's hard. It's much harder than we ever imagined and less glamorous. And so being able to come to that point where I could see not only God's hand, but be able to share that with other women, it was just a beautiful gift to do that.
Oh man, Megan, I love your stories so much. They're so beautiful. And I think you've already given us some great advice here, but if there are any other thoughts on, just that beginning, the steps of looking in on our relationship with ourselves and parsing out the joys and the sorrows, the hard times and the good times. Any thoughts for women who, inspired by your stories? We have, questions. We have 2 question prompts at the end of every essay to try to look interiorly. Do you have any thoughts for those ladies?
Yeah, I think patience and perseverance is really the key with any relationship, and especially with relationship with ourselves, because especially as we become more self-aware, we just want to jump right ahead to everything is fixed. I know better, therefore I should do better. And that's not how any of it works, because we're so human and we're so imperfect. And the enemy's goal in that is to get us to just become really frustrated and give up. And then we can't accept or receive the healing that God desires for us. But if we wait on the Lord, or if we try to have that posture of waiting on the Lord, even though it's hard, then we'll be able to just slowly begin to see a lot of those changes and that healing bit by bit. If we try to take care of everything at once, if you think of pruning, right? If we wanted everything pruned at once, there'd be nothing left. We wouldn't survive it. So just to be able to allow the Lord to do one little piece at a time. And it's hard because our society is so so bent on instant gratification, and we just don't know how to wait anymore. And so it's a very countercultural approach, I think, to prayer and to relationship with self or anyone else. But it's so fruitful when we are able to be patient and just keep getting up and trying again. When we fail, we're gonna fail. So just to keep persevering in that and waiting patiently, I think we'll be really surprised at different points when we look back and see the incredible growth.
Ooh, I mean, you guys, each one of you could teach a master class on this. I'm just so grateful for your pearls of wisdom, for me especially. Okay, Megan, who's next?
All right. So since God is the most important relationship, I want to go to Beth and hear about God.
Thanks, friend. Hi, ladies. I'm Beth Davis. I am the Director of Ministry Advancement for Blessed Is She. Been full-time with the ministry for about 5 years. Actually, a little more than 5 years now. And I spent 11 years as a youth minister in Flagstaff, Arizona. One of my greatest achievements. I was at the same parish with the same pastor for 11 years. Not many people can claim that. And I had the privilege of writing about relationship with God. And the whole process was a real gift to me. And this conversation has been a real grace for me. Just to share what I know and believe is the most interesting thing about me. The best thing about me is just Christ in me and what He's done for me. So it was a real joy to go back, even through some of those more painful seasons in my relationship with the Lord, and to kind of share those hard-won graces with all of you, to invite you more deeply into intimate relationship with the Lord.
I mean, Beth, your stories start the book out and they lay me flat. They are so powerful because you are channeling His love and His life through you. It's really an incredible gift. Was there one particular story that I mean, we're talking both, right? People are saying like their favorite story and the hardest one to write. Take your pick.
Yeah, I mean, there's a real theme, I think, because for me, I can relate to that the hardest one to write was the best one for me. It's not even my favorite essay necessarily, but it was an 8-day retreat that I made right at the beginning of 2020. And there was not a lot of perceivable consolation on that retreat. And that 8-day really represented a shift in my relationship with the Lord and how I heard God's voice. He was really maturing me in some ways and kind of weaning me away from those like sweet consolations I'd become used to. So what I was perceiving as in that silence, really as kind of a lack or a disconnection, became a place of profound unity and intimacy with him. And I remember sitting with my laptop in bed and writing it, and kind of in the way that the Lord works. I was reading in my own like spiritual reading, a book that sort of supported me reflecting on that experience. And I think I just had a spiritual direction or something I was reading in scripture, and it was like all of the pieces came together, and I could finally see for what it was that that silence that I experienced on the retreat was actually an experience of being in the depths of the heart of God, in his suffering, in his darkness. And it was a real invitation for me moving forward that set the tone even in my personal prayer for the past 2+ years. Yeah, so real grace to be able to reflect on that and write on it. I would have rather just moved on from that retreat, taken kind of the, skimmed off the top what I was comfortable with, what I understood from that retreat. But writing about it really helped me to receive what the Lord intended, and gave to me very generously on that 8-day, that there was sort of a veil over my eyes before writing about it.
Isn't that amazing? When we write, we get to reprocess, and the neurons fire and wire and take the memory and like sift it through. It's just an incredible, it is a part of the prayer, part of the process. What about you, Beth? Advice for those who are kind of, they're like starting to get into that. They recognize they need to like step beyond looking for the consolations, and they want to go deeper in their relationship with the Lord. But it is hard to look at. It's just hard to look at your own story in general. Any thoughts for those gals?
Yeah, maybe not so much advice, if it's okay if I kind of switch it up. I'm a little contrarian that way. But I think I would just like to invite you to meet Jesus as a real and living person. And in those areas where you feel like you're not sensing God's hand or you're not hearing his voice, to just like hear from my heart that he's alive and he loves you and he's worth it. I resonated with what Megan shared too, just about the patience and the persevering. So to persevere in prayer and to be patient with yourself and with the Lord, because he loves you and he's with you, and all things work together for good for those who love the Lord. So don't be afraid to draw near to Jesus. Don't be afraid to give him more. Because the plan he has, the love he has, it's so much greater than, what we could ask or imagine. Yeah. So just want to invite people to encounter his heart.
I mean, you can't beat that. That was way better than advice. That was the best invitation possible. Thanks, Beth. Bonnie, do you want to go to you and then we'll go to me? What do you think, Bonnie? You up for it?
Oh, I would love to follow up that. That's great. I have nothing to add, folks. No, okay. I'm sorry. My name is Bonnie Engstrom. I live in Central Illinois. I am married, I think like 16 years. They've been good years. So, to my husband, who teaches physics at the local high school. And we have 8 kids in a mix of public school and parochial school, and a high school freshman down through a kindergartner. And then I have a I have a 3-year-old who's still at home with me. So I drive a lot. That's my state in life. I drive a lot. So that's where I'm at. And really at this point in my life, I'm just a very happy homemaker. I like to garden. I like to watch Masterpiece Theater, on PBS. And I love cooking, baking, and just spending time with my husband and kids. So yeah, that's me.
I mean, you're also an extremely accomplished author many times over and an international.
Oh yeah. I should probably mention, fun fact about me is that my son James, he had a healing, a miraculous healing that was attributed to Fulton Sheen for Fulton Sheen's beatification. Like it was officially approved by Pope Francis. So, and I did write a book about that, but mostly I drive. So God did that, and I just drive the kids around.
But Mark, how generous and appropriate that you wrote the section of the book on family and those we love like family, because this is the season you're pouring into so deeply right now. And I love your stories. You went through different phases, and not just simply your own family life as a mother, but different people you had loved. Did you have favorite story, most challenging story, least favorite story? The whole thing is open. Tell us what you think.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's definitely my essays where my vanity is like, oh, this one was really well written. But I think as I went back and reread all of my essays, the one that really got me the hardest was one that I actually wrote about a phase in life that I'm still in, which is about dealing with my son who has very severe anxiety. He also has like an intellectual disability and depression. And, we're just in the middle of really trying to walk with him and love him. And, I mean, literally just the last month or so has been very, very tough. And when my book arrived and I was flipping back through the essays and I read the essay about him, I just it was so good for my heart because it took me back to that moment and allowed me to have a tenderness for him again, where I have just been so frustrated and worried and, because being a mom is hard. Like we're doing our best, but we don't know what we're doing. And we have experts who are helping us, and we have prayer and the sacraments and everything like that. But at the same time, we're doing the best we can and trusting in the Lord. And when, in the middle of a tempest, it can still feel very scary and lonely, So to go back to that chapter was really a beautiful, beautiful grace for me. So that would be my favorite. Although I don't think it's the best I actually wrote, but it definitely hit my heart.
I mean, it's an incredible chapter. I really love that one too, Bonnie. I remember walking into that as the editor and being able to feel it. Like you could feel it. And I think that's what beautiful writing is, when you guys we've all done this writing from our hearts and the readers can feel it. It's not a show, it's from the heart. But speaking to women who are walking through stuff with family, I know there are women who are with us right now live or watching the playback who feel like those whom they love like family, it's just sorting through the relationships can be very challenging. Do you have any thoughts on how to step into examining that while still maintaining your sanity?
I think one of the best lessons that I learned, just as a Christian, was to build altars to the Lord, in my mind, in my memory, in my heart. And so, there are situations that have been so good and so grace-filled. And I try in those moments to just stop and take it in, or maybe later that day to really process it, to think about it, to maybe journal about it, to discuss it with my husband, and to really kind of lay it out in prayer, and even like an imaginative prayer to kind of relive it with the Lord, and maybe to see it from different angles, kind of the way you enter into a scripture passage, maybe where you are, you're reading a passage from the gospel. And so you look at it from the perspective of this person in the crowd, or maybe Simon, or maybe Jesus, or maybe Mary, or whatever. And so I kind of will try to do that and really capture that moment, and then build an altar of praise to the Lord on that memory and on that moment of grace. Does that make sense? To the the five of you, please I want to make sure I'm making sense. But then when things are hard And when I feel hurt and when I feel dragged down, I can go back to those moments and I can remember the goodness of God and I can praise him at that altar. And I can know that he is not going to forsake me. I can know that I am not alone because this is what he's already done in my life. And so I mean, that's my advice, is to, as things come, as the good things come, however small that grace may be, or however beautiful and joyful it is, to take that and to really process it and hold it dear, and to, build an altar to return to it, to the Lord when things are hard. So,
Bonnie, I've never heard that, and now I'm just going to pray like 10 holy hours on that. That is so beautiful. Gosh,
thanks. Praise be to God.
praise be God. Amen. Hallelujah. That's so great, Bonnie. Thank you. So I'll wrap it up. I got to write about family, family of origin. So I got to tell you guys, I have been, I've been thinking like, all right, I'm going to get this all written before I have my fifth baby. I had a C-section all planned, and then labor started 3 weeks early. I had a baby 3 weeks early, and I ended up writing all of these after I had him, which was not what we were planning. I really thought I would get it all done, all wrapped up ahead of time. But how amazing the Lord is that the stories came out very differently than they would have if they had been before I had him, because seismic shift in life, a new child. One of the stories in particular, that's one of my faves, I'll touch on later, involved like post life with him. But I think the biggest challenge in writing about your family of origin while they're all still alive is that I did send the Google Doc to all my siblings, to my parents. Of course, Anthony, my husband, looked over it with me. And one of my sisters kept teasing me, like, when are you going to write the real HarperCollins book? I'm like, what are you talking about? These are the real stories. She's like, yeah, these are like the G-rated versions of the story. I'm like, well, I mean, come on. Got to save something for my memoir when everybody else is dead. And I can tell all the stews, spill the tea or whatever. It's all the juice. But truly, I think my brother's response was about one chapter is about him that I thought was very poignant. He was like, is this satire? I'm like, satire? I wept writing this about you and my relationship. Anyway, I think my mom wrote back like, oh, it sounds like you had such a hard life. I'm like, oh no, is that Minnesota passive aggressive for all? But everybody did see it ahead of time. They all knew what I was going to say about them. There was one sibling that asked to be left out, so there were no stories mentioning her. I had to get my ducks in a row because it's about family. But probably the biggest takeaway was about, and the hardest stories to write, and the realest stories were about setting boundaries. Because I think no matter where you are, if you are an adult woman 18 plus, boundaries with family of origin are really challenging because you love these people and there's a lot of individuation that needs to happen from them. So one story in particular I told about, I told a lot about boundaries now that I'm thinking about it. One story about setting new traditions on a Christmas morning when we had a young family and saying, hey, we actually want to have our own thing Christmas morning. We'll join you guys later on the day. And the reluctance and like hot fear I had in my heart of having this conversation with my family, it did turn out fine. Not all boundaries turn out fine. That one did turn out fine. But just thinking, gosh, we have to have those boundaries for healthy adult relationships, because even as adult children, we're not dependent children anymore. So navigating those as an adult has been an ongoing challenge for me, recovering people pleaser that I am. And I hope that me sharing those stories of many awkward situations in my stories in this book can help people who are also trying to navigate boundaries themselves. And sometimes you set too firm of a boundary and then you have to walk it back, or this boundary was too weak and you have to push it forward. But that would be my thought. My takeaway advice would be that simply trying to examine your heart and figure out what works and what doesn't work for you. Like you were saying very at the beginning, Emily, like God doesn't have all these doors, and if you miss out, you miss out. Like his life and his plan for you is also what you are living. Like you are living in his will. It is what you're existing in right now. And to do that time to think, like, heart check, is this where he's asking me to be? And how am I ready to relate in a healthy way with the people around me? Which does mean addressing stuff, looking at my own baggage, looking at your own baggage, friends who are thinking, yeah, I need to kind of work on the family of origin stuff. Also being gentle and kind. Speaking of family, one of my sisters calling me. So sorry about that, guys. But to say, I had to go to confession a lot and figure out, like, where am I where am I in this story, instead of just painting everyone else as the villain and I'm the victim, but truly being ready to say, I want to step into this as a healed and whole adult woman, so I can bring my best to my family that has its pathology, as every family does, but I'm bringing my best self to this relationship, which is great. You guys, wow. And I have to say, as the editor, before we sent it to HarperCollins, it was such a privilege to walk through the stories that you ladies poured your hearts onto those little Google Docs. And we had like color coordination, and we had like word count, we had all of this, that, and the other going on. And the dance that we got to do here internally at Blessed Is She before sending this manuscript on gave me so much life and so much joy. And I really hope that this book can bless so many. I believe it will. I know it will. And thank you. Thank you to my sweet writers, and thank you to all the readers out there. I hope it blesses you. Gosh, guys, we're going at 40 minutes strong. I mean, we could go for 2 more hours, but some people have martinis and popcorn in a small group to get to. So we'll wrap it up in a prayer. Unless any of you ladies, I'd love to hear if you have closing thoughts, or now that you've listened to your sister writers, if you had something to share. Love to hear any final words.
If I could just pop in real quick, I wanted to say that when I read through all of the essays, and I did it I just breezed right through it. I wanted to delve in and get all the stories, but I was really touched. And, what is it? Are we 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us are from different parts of the country, different backgrounds, different families of origin, different careers, there, 2 of you guys lived in DC. I would never want to do that. And I'm in awe so we're very different is what I'm getting at. But every one of you had stories and moments and perspectives that were so eye-opening to me, and so, stuff that I had to just stop. I remember in one of Megan's essays where she was writing, and okay, so talk about totally different. I am apple shaped and she is slender, and she's writing about how slender she is. And when she's talking about it in such a vulnerable way, and I just thought, oh, well, darn it. That's real. And I've always been so caught up in my own suffering and self-consciousness or whatever, that I never considered what it would be like for someone else. And to hear her perspective, and to hear, Emily and Sarah and Beth and Nels, to hear these stories, and to find how I was able to connect with them, or how they were able to open up a new perspective that brought healing into a part of me that I never would have imagined it coming that way. But it was really beautiful and such a gift. And I do plan on going through this slowly. It's part of my plan for the new year, but I just wanted to say that. So thank you so much for sharing all of those stories and being vulnerable and allowing all of us to kind of process our own baggage. So thank you. And also, it's really beautiful. Literally, it's beautiful. So well done, HarperCollins. It's like they know what they're doing.
We have to credit Jenna Gizar, because she actually was the brains behind all the design and picking out everything, working with the designer, working with the artist. We have original artwork in this. So we're so grateful HarperCollins recognized that Jenna knows what she's up to too, which is such a gift and such a blessing. Any other thoughts, my friends? Bonnie, thank you. You brought tears to my eyes. I really appreciate your words.
Can I offer a thought now? I'm all frozen here, so I don't know if I'm frozen to you guys. I think it's important for people who are reading to know that all of the questions we wrestled with in our stories, these are ongoing. Life is a continual discernment. God is continually opening up new ways where we're like, oh, I really have to grow in terms of how I'm dealing with my parents, because your parents are older and they're aging, and all sorts of new family dynamics open up, or there's new career opportunities, or God's just unpacking who we are with him. So don't think when you're reading this that we have all got it all figured out and that we have done our work and now we're moving on and we're going to have our martinis and popcorn. Like we are all in this process of discernment with you, and it's a lifelong process of growing closer to Jesus and having him, strip us kind of like he does with in C.S. Lewis's is it Prince Caspian, where he's stripping Eustace of the layers of the dragon skin. And that really goes on until our last breath and beyond. So we're in this with you. It's always, don't feel like anyone's got it all figured out, because everyone who knows me could tell you otherwise. So.
Yeah, Emily, I love that so much. It's so true. And I think it really comes across in the way we share our stories. Like nobody's pretending to have it all together. We're truly just sharing from the trenches into the trenches in your own life too, which is such a gift. Any other thoughts, my friends?
I mean, mostly I'm just wondering, am I the only one who doesn't have a book yet? I want to get this book in my hands and I don't have it yet. So,
Oh, Beth, I'm so sorry. You were supposed to get a copy from the office. Did no one give it to you?
I did not know. I haven't even seen a copy around here.
Good. Well, Paige and Jenna Gizar, get Beth Davis a book. I'm so sorry, Beth. You will. Just wander
don't
back.
be sorry.
Somebody's got it for you back there.
I'm excited. I'm excited. I've read all of your words in Google Docs, but not in the hardcover. Yeah, so looking forward to that.
Well, my friends, what a joy, what a pleasure. Really great to have this evening together. I wish we all had a cup of hot cocoa or that martini that Emily's about to enjoy. Pass some over here, Emily. And just I'm grateful for your hearts. I'm grateful for everybody listening. blessedisshe.net/shop. We've got Loving God, Loving Others in the shop for pre-sale. We'd love to send it to you, to your happy little hands and to your happy little hearts from our hearts. All right, you guys, God bless. Mwah. Good night.